Hello, I'm Jackie Lucky, your financial planning maestro. This series of podcasts is aimed at financial planning professionals and also those who are looking to enter the financial planning profession. We will be talking during the podcast about all things Certified Financial Planner certification related, talking to other CFPs around the world, and also we will be dropping in on some new entrants who've just entered the financial planning profession, and we'll be checking up along the way on a regular basis with them to see how they're getting on. I hope you enjoy today's podcast. Hello and welcome to today's podcast. I'm Jackie Lucky, your financial planning maestro. And today we are talking about balance and work-life balance and everything to do with your own personal balance. And I've been joined by a very special guest, and that is Travis Parry from Make Time Institute. Welcome, Travis.
Hey, thanks, Jackie, for having me.
My pleasure. Great for you to come along. Now, I know that, we've been friends for quite a long time, I think now, and you have a couple of books out, one most recently all about balance. So we're going to get to that in a very short while. But before that, I just want to ask you a couple of questions about how you got to where you are today. So let me ask you, how did you get into financial advice and financial planning in the first place?
By sheer dumb luck.
As most of us did.
I wanted to be a public speaker growing up, and I didn't know how there was a path for that. I went to school to try to figure out, what to do. They said, well, take communications, and, that'll set you up with a position in PR and, communications expert in media. And I was like, that's not really what I want to do. There wasn't really a clear path. So I did some interviewing and I found a financial planner who was like, hey, you would love my job. My job is so fun. I get to speak to people every day, all, with different walks of life, and help them with their money. And, and I was like, wow, I really like that too. I like helping people achieve their goals. That was really exciting for me. And I was like, wow. And I'm sure there's a lot that I could learn about, being a financial advisor and myself. I'm sure it would help me. So I got started down that path. And I realized that if I became a really great, outstanding financial advisor, I would be asked to speak. In fact, people started asking me to speak about certain topics because I was doing them really well. Not at the level I wanted to, but I knew that was a great path. And, eventually I would become a speaker, but it became a platform really as an advisor to really understand, what are people struggling with when it comes to money? What are they dealing with on a relationship basis? What are they dealing on a psychological basis?
It's fascinating stuff, isn't it? Getting into the minds of not only clients, but also the people you work alongside.
That's right.
Yeah. And so at what point did you realize that, your own balance was out and, with the people around you, and there was obviously something growing inside you, this, to desire to start to help people in a slightly different way?
Yeah, I started to realize that my own balance was out of whack because I started a business, and all about starting businesses. There's always something to be done on the business development operations side. And I was getting pulled away from building the business a lot of the time as, a young entrepreneur. But I was also newly married, a couple of years into marriage, and we had 2 children. So we were, busy. We also were finishing up our college degrees. My wife and I, we graduated together. So I really had this desire to be a lot like my father, who ran his own business so that he could run his own schedule. And I really wanted that. I wanted time freedom.
Yeah.
So I had this messed up view of time, that it was somehow an ability to be doing everything all at the same time. And I thought, well, yes, I can be there for everyone and for everything. And I'd say yes to everything, only to find out that I became what I now call a do-it-all. And a do-it-all essentially is that person who really doesn't have a plan. They just are just trying to please everyone. And I'm totally a people pleaser. All you people pleasers out there, I feel you. We say yes, we do things that we know we probably can't accomplish, but we have this ambitious mentality that no, other people can't do it, but I can, right?
Yeah.
And so we set out, and that's a really great quality, to be a self-starter, to be ambitious. But I think over time, if we don't have a great time management system that's based in our values, if we don't have boundaries in place, we can become more productive, but we can even become a productive workaholic, someone who, is great at doing a lot of things really well, but then can burn out just as fast as the do-it-all.
Yeah.
So I kind of classify the do-it-all, the productive workaholic, in the same type of workaholic area. And workaholism is an addiction. It can become an addiction. We wear it like a badge of honor on our shoulder and say, hey, this is, I have to do this because I'm a business owner. And it can quite quickly come down, crashing down upon us.
Yeah, it's really interesting, actually. I was just listening. Well, I was just going to listen to one of Stephen Bartlett's podcasts, and he's got a specialist doctor on, and he was saying that statistically, you're more likely to contract cancer and other serious illnesses because if you're a kind person and you're a doer and you can't say no. And so I think there's a building library of evidence now that indicates that if you keep saying yes to everything, that you're actually going against naturally, physically, what your body is capable of. And therefore your body eventually comes to the point where it says, nope, I'm going to stop you. And this all kind of feeds into getting this balance right, doesn't it?
Yeah, I do think so. And I think the mediating factor here is stress.
Yeah.
Or mitigating factor is that's the connection between, being a yes person and, quite honestly, a workaholic and disease, because stress is what keeps us from really accomplishing things we want to be accomplishing. But over time, psychologists call it cognitive dissonance. If you really care about something important in your life, but you're not accomplishing it, and in fact, you maybe are working against it, you create what's called cognitive dissonance. And that becomes very stressful. It's internal. It's hard to diagnose, but a lot of us carry that with us.
Yeah.
And because we carry it, especially men, we don't know how to cope with a lot of these stressors very well. We don't talk about it. We don't discuss emotions. We're getting better. But a lot of times it's just not something that we do naturally. We have to learn and to express these emotions and get them out and then cope with these stressors so we can prevent these illnesses.
So that leads me on nicely to talk to you about, your most recent book. And actually, you only just yesterday announced that you've changed the strap line for it, haven't you?
Yes, I have. And after writing Achieving Balance, I really found a lot of my clients, and I was doing lots of speaking. I even came across the pond to visit you over there and do some speaking for CISI back in 2019, all about balance and priorities and values. But I found a lot of my clients coming to me saying, hey, Travis, this is great. I have good balance now, or I already have great balance, but I'm trying to build this business. I'm trying to grow and scale my financial planning practice. Everyone's saying that I should do mergers and acquisitions or that I should market heavily. You didn't do either of those, but you're growing your business. Can you tell us how you've done this completely organically? And I was like, no, that's not what I do. I help people with balance. And I had several clients who said, no, you don't understand. If I'm considering throwing my balance out the window so that I can scale and grow my business, I need your help. I need your help to know what you've done so I don't lose my balance. And I was like, oh man, I've got to write another book. And, once you write your first book, I mean, I have all sorts of ideas now, like, oh, I want to write this book and this, but I've really allowed my clients and the feedback that I'm getting from the work that I'm doing to dictate what's coming next, what needs to come next. And so this book, Balanced Growth, is all about how do you keep your balance while growing and scaling your business? How can you 10x this thing without becoming an absolute workaholic again?
Yeah.
Because it is workaholism, Jackie, it is a financial addiction.
Yeah.
And a lot of financial advisors, we're not diagnosing, we're not therapists, but we see it in our clients. We know it exists, but oftentimes it also exists in us.
And you have changed your strapline to really start to hone in on dads of the financial advice world, haven't you?
Yes. Fathers specifically, and when my father passed away, I was 26. He was 49. I am now almost 44. So I'm catching up to him. And I had a major breakdown. I thought, oh my goodness, what am I doing with my life? I'm not on track, but also my health. Wow, I've let that go. Right. But it's all been in the name of providing for my family, building my business. So I let my fitness go. I also let a lot of things in my own faith journey kind of become lax. When you let any muscle, stop working it out, you start working out any muscle in your body, it becomes lax. It becomes weak. And I was like, man, I'm kind of losing some faith here. I'm not being the spiritual person that I want to be. My physical health has kind of gone to the wayside, and I'm losing my family slowly. I'm not there for my wife and kids like I want to be. I wasn't the dad that I intended to be. And when my father passed away, it was a huge slap in the face. Like, what if you only make it to age 49?
Yeah.
What if you never make it to 50? So that's why I wrote Achieving Balance, is I really wanted to get that knowledge out there that I've learned about how to get past being a workaholic and all the research that we did to try to figure out this problem, because I dug deep. But the reason why I was helping financial advisors is because I knew, and you and I know the statistics, Jackie, but 80 some percent of financial advisors around the world are male.
Yeah.
I thought, what a great niche. I am a financial advisor. I was a financial advisor. I understand. I speak their language, but it just became a natural niche that happened. Like, hey, I can talk about my experience as an advisor when they're clients. And I started working there. Mm-hmm. And of course, I have moms who are clients. I have female clients that we work with all the time. But with this second book, I realized I needed to make a slight change. I really need to say, this is for dads. If you're a business owner, you're running a company, you're a CEO, you're an entrepreneur, there's something different about working with dads. Women naturally want and create balance in their life. It's a natural thing. But men, they allow this very siloed look in life to, quite honestly, allow them to continue to become a workaholic, even though they know they need to spend time with their family. They know they should work out. They know they need to do these things. It's quite a phenomenon. Men die before women.
Yeah.
And they die younger. And they die especially younger if they don't have a spouse who's there caring for them or with them. It's just a phenomenon we have to deal with as men. And I said, you know what? I'm going to really dedicate this next book to helping dads to figure this out. Of course, the principles will work for women, but I really want to make my message very loud and clear to dads out there that you can be a balanced dad.
Yeah. So let's get into the nitty gritty. We were just talking off air about all the little sayings that I have and the differences between the US.
Nitty gritty, we can get in. That's a universal one, and we can go with that one.
Excellent. Right. So tell me about some of the major issues that you see when you start working with dads who are running their own business and trying to grow their business.
So one of the first things that we've seen is there are three main groups. There are those who think that they have to let go of balance for a period of time in order to grow at a high scale. There are those who think that they can't scale at all, or else they'll lose their balance. And then there are those who have figured out that if they can run their practices very efficiently and with what I call the balanced growth method, reach out using inviteology and systems, and we'll get into the nitty gritty on this one. But the balanced growth method really allows one to essentially have both ways. You can still keep your balance, but you can grow and scale without, losing it, without losing your faith, without losing your fitness, without losing your family in the meantime.
Okay, so how do we go about doing that exactly?
Yes. So here's the exact steps. I like to summarize balance with an acronym I call LIFT. It's buried in achieving balance. Balanced growth, I'm going to bring it out. I'm going to put it right in your face and say, this is how you achieve balance first. Okay. So number one, L. L stands for live your values. If you don't know what your values are, then you may be struggling because you have some cognitive dissonance, some stress that's keeping you from living your purpose. So you want to do that first. And I outline that in Achieving Balance very well, those first 3 chapters. We'll summarize it in Balanced Growth. Then the next is having an ideal calendar. That's I. An ideal calendar should match up to where your values are. In addition, what do you value the most at work? What are your highest priorities? Where should you be spending most of your time? I've got an assistant who does all my content editing. I have an assistant who does all of my marketing, my outreach, my websites, ads, all those kinds of things. I have an assistant who does all of the sales aspect of things. I only focus on 4 or 5 main things. Podcasting, like this, podcast guesting, my own podcast. Yep. Speaking. I coach. I write content as an author and with books. And I'm also out there doing trainings, in-person live training. So anytime that I'm speaking, teaching, educating my clients or groups, audiences, that's my sweet spot. I do everything within my power to spend 80 to 90% of my day, the whole Pareto principle, in that area. So I've created an ideal calendar that allows me to do that. In addition, it has all the other areas of life baked in. Why? Because I don't want to lose my balance. I want to keep the boundaries that I have to keep working on all areas. And most people make the mistake of they'll have an ideal calendar for their work, but not for all the other 9 areas of their life. Yeah. So that's I. F is family support. You need your family support. If we classify workaholism as an addiction, which we do in the United States, it's in the diagnostics for psychologists, psychiatrists to diagnose various diseases, and they have classified workaholism as an actual addiction. Now, that said, most people don't consider it that. So they think, well, yeah, I just need like a time management tip, trick, or hack. And I'm telling you, that's not the right way to go about it. If you're dealing with workaholism and you know that that's a tendency of yours, and I've had people that we've interviewed that just literally brag about it. They think it's fun. Well, I'm a workaholic, and nothing's gonna stop me. And like, yeah. In 20 years, when I interview you again, you're going to tell me that you've been divorced twice, you're working on the 3rd marriage, and you're 30 pounds, 40 pounds overweight. This is what we see with people, Jackie. This is just the outcome. So how do you have your family support you? Well, you tell them, I'm struggling. I want to be home. I want to be with you. I want to spend time. I want to go on vacations. I want to do these things that matter to you. And they can help support you by kind of keeping you accountable, making sure that, hey, Dad, you're supposed to be home. We're supposed to go do things. I have 7 children, 1 on the way tomorrow, Jackie. Wow. We're going to have our 8th child. People look at me and go, Travis, you're crazy. And thank you. And the thing that they typically think of is like, wow, you have 8 kids. And so the vision in their head is they see like 8 little toddlers running around. I'm like, no, we don't have 8 toddlers. We have 2 adult children. We have 2 teenagers. We have 2 that are, between the ages of 7 and 10. And we have a toddler and a baby. So they all help each other. But how do I spend time with them?
Yeah.
I have one-on-one time. I schedule with them. I do daddy dates. I take them to do fun things that they like doing. We have time together as a family. You have to schedule this in. Now, the last one I think is one of the most important, and that is T for teamwork. You and your spouse, if you're a dad, your spouse is the most important supporter in your life. And they should be, and you should be for them. Not only is this good marriage advice, that's research-based and backed, but it's great for the 2 of you for your own psychological and physical health, and even financially. You know this when clients come in and they're on the same page and they have goals that really match up and line up with each other. Man, being a financial advisor is awesome.
Yeah.
I can create a plan for those couples all day long.
Easy. Yeah.
But the one, right? But the ones who are like, oh, I don't know, I don't want to retire. And the other one's like, I want to take care of my kids, and I want to, do this and this for their education. And all of a sudden you got an argument right there in your office. Like, what do you do? Nobody taught us how to deal with this. You have to be a therapist. And so financial therapy has become a real thing.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting when we're dealing with those problems. But if you're on the same page, you're supporting your spouse's goals, they're supporting yours, and you have goals that are shared financial goals, shared health goals, shared parenting goals, you're gonna be successful.
Yeah. And I know quite a few people, me included. And in fact, I'm going to confess now, a couple of Saturdays ago, my son went off to play football, and I thought I'd just do a couple of hours work. And he came back at 3:00 in the afternoon. And I was still sat at my desk. At which point he came in and told me off. He's 15.
But there's this saying that's been going around that I've noticed lately. I'm sure it's older than me, but it's, at the end of the day, the only ones that will care that you worked late is your family.
Yeah.
You can be super productive, but if you have those boundaries in place, Jackie, like you've been chastised about, that it will work. So what happens is a lot of people get a time management system, or they will be organized for a while, and then 90 days later, they will fall off the wagon. Yeah. That's an expression in America that hopefully that translates here,
yes,
Jackie.
It does.
Just giving you a hard time. But essentially, we think that we can do this alone. But if it's a true addiction, we're lying to ourselves. An addiction requires support. An alcoholic goes to a center for help. They go to AA, whatever programs are out there to get help. And then if they come back and other people there are not supportive of their new lifestyle, they will fall right back into the same habits. Yeah. Smoking, drugs. It doesn't matter the type of addiction. The concept is the same.
Yeah.
So we have to realize that this is an addiction. And if you think that you can outsmart it and you've been dealing with it, you are lying to yourself.
Yes.
And it's just not going to be helpful for anyone. We've done over 1,000 interviews now, Jackie, for these 2 books. I do a lot of interviews to get research, and also to find clients that might need help. It's our way of doing it, which is this next part of the book, which I'll get to. And I found that there are some people, man, they say, I wish you would have found me 30 years ago. I've had to learn everything the hard way. And they tell me about their workaholic journey that has just destroyed their life.
Yes.
And they may be successful, but they're working on their 3rd marriage, and they're dealing with lots of problems that were so much attributed to being a workaholic.
Do you think that they are mimicking their own parents or their own dads to a certain extent? Have they witnessed, their own dads working excessive hours, and they think that that's what they need to be doing to providing? Or is that not broadly the case?
Yeah. In my experience doing these interviews, the number one influence on an individual's success is their parents. So for good or for bad, they're seeing an example in a parent. And a lot of times they can be, oh yeah, it's my dad. He was totally the workaholic. And I have a work ethic from that. And they attribute it, to their father, their mother, whatever. But also, we've also discovered that at the end of my book, I talk about fear, achieving balance. I talk about fear, and I'll get to balanced growth. We'll circle back to this in a second. And fear is a real thing, but it typically is subconscious. It's a subconscious idea. These things that perpetuate these blocks, limiting beliefs in our brain that we can't do something. Those are also easily attributed back to the parent. And I've found a lot of correlation between children who are now adults, who, as we've kind of walked them back into their childhood and talked about, especially young adult and teenage adolescent years, the things that they were told they couldn't do, they're either taking that and letting it become yeah, you're right. Or a lot of them fight against it and say, oh yeah, I'm going to show you. So they use it for good and sometimes for bad. So we talk about fear, where it comes from. And interestingly, in Balanced Growth, my second book, after I introduced the LIFT method, we talk about faith. Now, you don't have to be in a specific religion. This is not a religious book, but I do believe that faith is a principle of action. You need to act. And the best way to get past any fear is with action. Even if you're scared, that doesn't matter. You can go forward in faith. Get on a stage and start speaking. Was it 2007? I started doing my first speeches in front of Chamber of Commerce groups and these Kiwanis clubs, basically these old men clubs here in America. I remember the first speech I gave, Jackie, and a guy fell asleep. He was 5 feet from me. He fell asleep in my speech, and I was dying to try to keep this guy awake. There's nothing I could do. I'm like, I'm boring. I'm going to be a speaker. I am boring. And I remember going, I was scared to speak about this topic, and I started training and more and more and more. And now, I get asked to speak all over the country and even for organizations across the pond, like the one that you previously were working with. And I thought, had I given up, had I given into that fear, I would never have gotten over it. I never would have been able to stand in front of a group of 500 people and tell them some stories of my own and principles that we've learned. And I honestly think that is the most important principle. Is you have to get past your fear.
And, I think most women, I saw something the other day saying most women have phrases saved, screenshots of phrases saved from their Instagram account or anything like that, ready for any eventuality about how they're feeling. And the one that strikes me most is feel the fear, but do it anyway.
I love it. Yeah. Faith over fear, feel the fear, but do it anyway. Like there's these affirmations that we have are wonderful. If, and they're even better if they are rooted in your values.
Yes. Yeah.
Because we have a lot of influencers, like you talked about social media and, Instagram. Of course, we go there sometimes for affirmation and for motivation. But we really need to know what our values are. And I talk about that in the LIFT program. That's the first step, LIFT. Yeah. Now, the second aspect of this, once you realize that you have to take action, well, the rest of it's kind of scary, but it is the best thing you can do. It's like getting up on a stage. So what do you do from here? Well, the Balanced Growth Method uses 3 other steps. Number 1, you have to really identify who your niche is, period. End of story. So many people, especially financial advisors, they just kind of have this shotgun approach where they just go out there and shoot at what they can kill and they bring it home.
Yes.
And that might work initially. But over time, if you want to develop a very, distinct business practice, the best thing you can do is niche. And I was taught this as an advisor, just sell insurance to anyone. I was like, oh my gosh, what have I done? I became an insurance salesman. This is not what I wanted to do. And I realized as soon as I could develop a niche, and it was with here in the States, we call it summer sales people. They go out for the summertime and they sell pest control or alarm systems or TV or even trash services. And they come back with loads of money. Mm. And I niched with the managers of these companies, especially the ones who were newly married, who had young children, because now they weren't just out there, making loads of money and coming back and spending it. Now they had a spouse who was like, hey, I want security. I want stability. I want to be able to take care of these kids. You can't just go out and buy everything now that you have a lot of money and live this crazy life. And so they were helping them to kind of settle down. And I realized this is my niche. I need to help these folks, and I need to help these, especially couples who are dealing with money problems. And the more that I niched as an advisor, the more that I found that people would refer me. And I didn't have to say, who do you know? Who, la, 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 Yep. They would just be like, hey, you did such a good job helping us. Can you help my friend? They're so much in the same situation. I told them about what we did and they want your help. I'm like, yeah. I started getting unsolicited referrals and I was like, wait a minute. All these gimmicks of like, hey, let me give you a gift card or take you golfing. They can work, but people want to know that you're the specialist for them.
Yeah.
If you don't have a niche, you need to really consider two main things: demographics and psychographics. The demographics are, age range, marital status, income, assets, that sort of thing. And the psychographics are what do these people care about? What are their values? What are their belief systems? What do they enjoy doing? You really need to get into the mind of your ideal client.
Yeah.
And the more you can do that, the better you can speak their language and understand them and what they need and what they want. So that's really step one, Jackie.
Yeah. And that's really interesting because, again, I think there's a fear or reluctance of many financial planners to actually get into the weeds and identify what their niche is. And actually, as we were saying earlier, nail the colors to the mast and go, right, I'm going all in with this particular group of people.
That's right. I love it. Yeah, you're exactly right. Like that's why getting over fear and taking action, being committed to take action. And of course, but back to the faith thing, I do believe in God. It's a very clear thing with me. Most people do have some belief in God. And I think that it also goes two ways. You can believe in God, but I believe God believes in you. Mm. And I believe that if you have a mission to help certain people, that God's on your side and he's going to help you to accomplish that. So you have nothing to lose. In fact, when I put out my first book, it wasn't initially meant for advisors. I was trying to find dads, but the more I realized, well, hold on, advisors are really taking to this. It's like, I'm going to try something. I'm going to really just, make a niche out of advisors and see what happens. And boy, did that blow up. Boy, did that just take off. And I spoke at most financial planning associations throughout the country. I was on Michael Kitz's podcast. Even people across the pond like yourself picked it up and like, hey, who's this guy? And I really became balance man for financial advisors.
Yeah.
So I'm telling you, the more that you can do this, the better. So the next step two, is you have to have a transformational system for your ideal client. People like to say clients buy solutions. And I would question that and say, yeah, maybe. I think customers buy a solution, but ideal clients, they buy systems. I remember when I was started as an advisor and people are like, well, are you going to stick around in this industry? A lot of people kind of come in and leave.
Yep.
Hey, listen, even if I don't, like I have an assistant, I have a partner who's, with this company and you have the backing of this company. Like if I leave, you will have the system.
Yeah.
What ideal clients want is they want to know that they're going to be taken care of, and they want a system because they know that you are imperfect. You will fail. You're going to let them down.
Yeah.
But a system can be perfected. There are, a lot of moving parts, but business systems that flow well work. They work way better than self-discipline. They work way better than you running around trying to do everything. In fact, when I bring on new clients now in my coaching program, I let them know, here's my system for this. Here's my system for this. Here's my system for this. It's not, hey, you're going to lean on Travis Parry for everything because I'm imperfect, human, I'm going to fail you. But these systems are set up so that I can help you achieve your result.
Have you heard of Floyd Green?
I have not.
So he is a financial planner, probably, where are we now? Maybe 20 years ago, 15 to 20 years ago. He was running a very successful financial planning business with a team of people, and he had an accident and was in a coma for a few months. And it just, he was on his way to work, had an accident, that was it. He's still alive, but during those few months that he was completely out of action, he was in a coma, in hospital, so nobody could, all of his employees couldn't ask him any questions or anything like that. And it was really interesting. He tells this story about what happened whilst he was out, and he said that so the managers of the business got all the staff together and they all started to discuss the jobs that they were doing, the roles that they had in that firm. And then the manager said to them, well, are there any other things that you can do or things that you like to do? And he explains that quite a number of staff had taken a job because they were paying the bills, when actually they really enjoyed doing something different in the business. So what they did was they all started swapping roles to find the bits that they all really enjoyed doing, and they all excelled at different things. And maybe some parts of the job that they loved, but there were big parts of a job that they hated, but that somebody else loved. And it was a fascinating story because when Floyd came out of his coma, he went back to work as a phased return to work, kind of half a day a week and then a day a week and so on. And his business was still standing, it was flourishing because the people had this foresight to have this discussion about what you were doing and actually what you loved doing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I talk to a lot of business owners who, that's a very awesome example of something where, where our business owner is gone for a period of time. But what about vacation? When I bring up vacation to financial advisors or business owners, they're always like, well, I love vacation, but I hate vacation. I'm like, why? Well, because I have to leave the business. I'm like, yeah. And what do you do? Well, I had a client, Jackie, who he loved World Cup. He loved soccer. In fact, he had a TV in his office. He would watch soccer, and sometimes he'd be watching soccer while meeting with clients. He loved it so much. I'm like, or sorry, football, right?
Yep.
We play soccer. It's the dumbest thing because I lived in Europe for 2 years. I lived in Denmark, and we call it football, and it is football. I played it all growing up, but anyway, we're gonna call it soccer because I'm American now, and football, soccer, whatever. We'll just call it the same. But, it was interesting is he would go to these World Cup games, a dream of his to go to World Cup in France. And you know what he was doing? His wife caught him checking email from work at a World Cup football game. And this is what we do as business owners. It's like we can't let go. It's like a mom who can't leave her baby at home with a babysitter so that she can enjoy a night out. I think we look at our businesses as our babies, and we want to coddle them. We want to hold it. But the best leaders out there are the ones who can let go and let the systems they put in place work, and let the people that they've hired to do those do those jobs inside those systems work.
Yeah.
And I quite honestly, most of my clients will come back and say, I went on this vacation. I was totally disconnected. I came back and wouldn't you know it, my business did better without me. And I'm like, yes, you did. You finally have become a business owner.
Yeah.
Because business owners can do that.
And it's okay for those systems to take time to bed in too, isn't it? I mean, you're not necessarily ever going to find the perfect team straight away, are you?
No, never. And, I've been through, series of employees and virtual or in person. And, we all have to, it's a very difficult, thing to unpack, but I love the book Good to Great. It talks about this principle that you brought up in that financial advisor who was in a coma, where get the right people on the bus, but get them in the right seats.
Yeah.
Get them in the right seats. And you may bring them on the bus and then you may have to shuffle around like he did. Totally fair. Totally fair. Someone might come in. I thought he was going to be a great marketing person. Turns out he was a better salesperson. Well, great. Let's put you on the sales team. And someone came in that I thought was going to be great with marketing. And I was like, whoa, you're actually way better with clients and operations and helping them on the fulfillment side. So I look at any business, Jackie, no joke, like a soccer field or a football field, right? Where you've got offense and defense. It's very basic. On offense, you have your marketing and sales. Okay. Advertisers like, oh, there's advertising. Advertising, I put into the marketing bubble.
Yep.
You've got marketing and sales, just like you have forwards and halfbacks.
Yes.
And then on the defensive side, you have fulfillment, and you really care mostly about that with your clients and operations. Okay. So operations could be a part of fulfillment. So, I mean, essentially, I played halfback, I played forward. Sometimes I played defense. So I understand this. And this analogy makes a lot of sense because some people will say, well, defense is your best offense. Essentially what they're saying is if you build an amazing operations, inside your business, that people will come to you because you're getting referral. And I will say, yes, it's very true. And then you have people on offense who say, no, offense is your best defense. And in what they're saying is, well, if you can really market well and you can have a really smooth sales transition, that you're going to bring people in better than getting self referrals. And I say yes to that too. So I believe in both. You need to have both a great offense and a great defense. Yeah. If your systems are struggling, it's because you do not have a great marketing system, a great sales system, a great operations system, or fulfillment system. If you don't have one of those four in place, then you are winging it and you're trying to figure out, well, why is my business not growing? Why isn't it going to the next level? Mm-hmm. And that's really the step 3. Okay. Step 3 is, well, then now that you know who your ideal client is, and you need a system in all of these areas to help them, what are you doing to tell the world about it? In this last, what I call invitology, so many times we market, we try to get referrals, we do these things on the offense or defensive side that we've talked about that are very old hat. They're old way of doing business. I believe that we need to stop interrupting people with ads. We need to stop pumping our clients for referrals. Who do you know who is just married or has just had a child or has just bought a home? All that stuff it's very much old hat. What we need to do is invite people. What are you talking about, Travis? Well, invitology, I coined this term, and I'll maybe write a book specifically just on this topic later in life. But for now, the idea is that you invite people, your ideal client, to something that's mutually beneficial. For example, when I announced Achieving Balance book, I invited my ideal client to be interviewed by myself to possibly be featured in the book. When I started my podcast, I started to invite ideal clients onto the podcast because I legitimately wanted to know what they were dealing with and then I could talk to them on either one using the book or the podcast. I invited them in and they knew they were going to get some airtime.
Yeah.
They were possibly going to be in my book. And it was a win-win. But also, I'm getting research. I'm now trying to understand the psychographics of what they're dealing with. And some of them will raise their hand and say, Travis, I thought you're the balance expert here. You're asking me about all these questions. Like, yeah, I know. That's because I think I know what you need, but I really want to know what you want. And they're going, this is brilliant. Can you help me? And I'll say, yeah. And if I want to work with them, then I'll say, yeah, for sure, I can. You definitely have a good fit. And then I can take them through my sales process. Mm-hmm. If they're not an ideal client, I can simply say, you know what? I'd love to, but I'd like you to read the book first, or take the course first, or do something that's going to get you to the point where you become ideal, or I might refer them to someone else. You don't have to say yes to every person that wants to work with you. In fact, this is one of the issues with referrals. If you're pumping your clients for referrals and they give you a bad referral, what do you do now? If they're an ideal client and now you don't serve their friend, oh boy, you have to be very careful. So I'm okay with saying no. And the reason why I do that is I use invitology for events, for speaking gigs, for books, for podcasts. And quite honestly, Jackie, since COVID, we've had to shift how we've done business.
Yeah.
And one of my marketing has been invitology, 100%, zero ad spend. And in the last couple of years, we've done over $1.2 million in sales from this method with me and a couple of people, on staff.
Wow. And you are a big fan of journaling, aren't you, as well?
Absolutely.
Where does that fit into this picture? Is that about, I guess it's, for me, journaling, I think I've said to you before, I don't get on terribly well with journaling, and I wonder whether I'm missing something because I think it should be about, your thoughts for the day, but actually in line with your values. Is that right?
Right. Absolutely. So listen, I would love to say I'm a great writer. I'm not a great writer. And that's not a limiting block or belief. It's just fact. It's truth. I am a great speaker. So when people ask me, well, Travis, why journaling and all these things, and say, listen, you can do it several ways. You can speak it out. You can take out your device and do a voice memo and just say, Jackie here, like Spock, Stardate, this is what I'm dealing with today. This is what I was up against. These are my obstacles. These are the great things that happened. I'm really concerned about this and I can't figure it out. You can talk it to yourself and walk it through. And if you think, people, this phrase that comes to mind all the time, it's not the people that talk to themselves that I'm worried about. It's the ones that don't.
Yes.
Because you've got to get these ideas out. And I don't care what comes naturally to you. If it's actually taking a pen and a piece of paper or a journal or notebook and writing it out, then fantastic. Do it. If it's, I need to speak it out because I'm just not great at writing, fantastic. I've done both work. And it's, I know a guy who says that every day on his drive home, he doesn't listen to the radio, doesn't listen to anything else. He just plugs in his phone, connects it to the speaker, and he speaks out his day. He journals his day on his ride home. When he gets home, he's got a lot of that junk figured out and he's ready to be dad to his family. I'm like, that's a great idea. In fact, Jack, just talking about how I might start doing that. But
sounds like a plan.
But I know it sounds good to me. But my ride home is only like 7 minutes, so I've got to speak fast.
You have to talk quickly, Travis.
Yeah. Well, and when he was telling me about this was pre-COVID, and I'm like, yeah, I worked from home for years. So, you just have to come up. If you're working from home, great. Then, speak it out before you open the door and come home.
Yes.
Whatever it is that for you. For me, I find a lot of solace in the evening after praying and meditating. I pull out my journal and write my thoughts. Again, I'm a big believer. I have faith in God, but I think he has faith in me. So I wait for those messages that I want to write down and be inspired about. And I will come in to work and I will have answers to those prayers and to that meditation and to that journaling exercise that have changed the direction of our company completely. And one of that was the subtitle of my book.
Yeah.
How dads can 10x their business without losing their faith, fitness, and family.
Yeah.
I realized I need to be more specific. I need to do what I'm telling my clients to do, and that is really nail this niche.
Yeah.
So that's how it's helped me, because a lot of times I will just journal and get my thoughts out and diagram. I'll draw things. I'll draw pictures. I'll write about my business. The scriptures say, pray over your flocks. My flock is my business. Like, what is it that I'm doing as a stewardship to help other people?
It's absolutely fascinating talking to you, Travis. I could talk to you all day, but we are nearly out of time for our podcast today. So I just wanted to ask you one final question for all of our listeners out there, and particularly for the dads out there running their businesses and wanting to grow their businesses. Do you have any, if you would just do, say, 2 or 3 things starting today, what would they be?
This is such a great question. And I saw this as we were preparing for that. And I thought, number one, figure out who you are. Know your values. It's the whole LIFT formula. Go through the LIFT formula. Really gain clarity about what your balance is so that you can grow your business. 2, I honestly think it's defining who it is you want to work with. I nail that ideal client. Nail the demographic and the psychographic and have systems in place so that you can serve them. Because once you transform their life, they won't be able to not tell other ideal clients about you. And that self-referral is gold for you, for them. It's just a win-win-win. And that the last piece is, don't be afraid to write a book, do a podcast, stand on stage for your ideal client and invite them in using invitology to grow your business. It is the best thing I've ever done. And my clients who have followed this balanced growth method, they have tripled business in 6 months. They have got $45,000 a week back in productivity. They have spent more time with their family than ever. They've improved their health and their bottom line, what they bring home to their families and to help give to their communities. It's just a win for the world, really, when you use the balanced growth method.
Wow. Travis, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks very much for joining me today.
Thank you, Jackie, for having me on the show.
It's really interesting, isn't it, to listen to different people who have different experiences of gaining their certified financial planner certification, or maybe developing the financial planning profession at large. If you know anybody who you think might be interested in listening to any of these podcasts, then please do pass on our details. That's it for me. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. See you again soon. Bye for now.